Good morning. Call to order this June 8th CFPUA board meeting. We have all members here today. Start off the meeting, we'll take an adoption of our agenda for today.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, we'll have our approval of our minutes for our May meeting. Mr. Hackney.
The May meetings, meeting minutes are in the packet. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, public comments. No speakers today.
That used to be a big part of the meeting.
Till you got us all straightened out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Here to help.
Next, we have our consent agenda. We have 7 items before you. Take any questions, comments, or a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to new business, attorney's report.
I don't have anything today except that Mr. Waldrop and I've been down to the legislature trying to get 1095 passed, which would allow the Department of Environmental Quality to enforce a provision to make those folks who are responsible for contaminating our water to pay for it. And that's mostly what we've been working on this month.
You're running into a lot of heartache.
Yes. The Manufacturers Association and the chambers, statewide chamber.
If I might add, with your permission,
Yes, please.
we think this is part of the broader strategy that we brought to you earlier, that we would engage in multiple arenas. And we feel like we're very fortunate to have some support in the legislature to try to reach resolution. But this will be a long, drawn-out, probably long session issue. We want to just make sure that we're still in alignment with your expectations. So we'll probably come back to you in the near future to make sure, yes, this is the type of practices you want us to undertake as your staff to try to solve the problem.
Is there a common thread throughout the people that are pushing against this? I mean, I find it a little bit disheartening that there are people out there pushing against this. And why?
I believe that we're trying to solve a regional issue with a statewide solution. So there are others outside of our region who have concerns about the resolution. And we're working with them to see if the language can be narrowed. Of course, this is the bill sponsor's bill, and it's the department to support. But we're trying to bridge these differences in a way to thread the needle and come up with legislation that will meet our needs and the needs of the other stakeholders who have concerns.
And health and safety bills have to be statewide. So it has to be a statewide bill. I think the chamber is afraid it would affect recruiting of businesses while they are opposed to it.
He's been very diplomatic.
Pardon me?
He's been very diplomatic.
I hear you.
For me, what I got was that they want less regulation, and as opposed to looking out, especially the local chamber here, quite disappointed with, instead of looking out for our own interest in our community, they're concerned about the state and national platform, which is less regulation. Here we have a major problem that we're trying to deal with, spending $40-some million on a plan, and the chamber, who represents the business community, I own a business that doesn't represent my views, but are out here pretty much pushing this agenda that, we don't want this bill to pass, and I find that troubling at best.
Well, I can't think of anything that would keep somebody wanting to come here if they thought we had unsafe water supply. I mean, it's like having a bad school system.
And what about that business?
Well, thanks to your forethought, this summer you'll be putting a new system online to resolve that issue. So now the heavy work that we have left is to hold the responsible party, Chemours, accountable and have them pay for it instead of our customers. And we'll continue to work on that.
Well, we still have to remember too that there's other things upstream of us, And if for whatever reason it's decided that those entities are not responsible for what they discharge, there's no telling what may come down the river in the future. And so, I think it's important to, especially for recruiting, economic recruiting, that they know that they need to come here and they need to be responsible, and that we're not going to have to deal with stuff coming at us from upstream that's going to be an issue for us.
Well, polluting our waterways is not confined to the coastal plain. I mean, it's a statewide, nationwide issue. It's not just here.
Yeah.
Well, I fail to see the reasoning on the other side. I just being narrow about it. Okay, thank you.
I think we're seeing a full-throated support from our governor and Secretary Beiser. Having them come down, I guess this is the second time in less than a month, and probably the fourth time that Secretary Beiser's been here. And for the press conference they held yesterday, it was first rate. I mean, I can't remember when we've had so much focus from the top leadership of our state right here to say just the things we're saying right here around the table. Is that we hear you, Wilmington or New Hanover County. We understand the problem. We're trying to bring the fix to it. I find it really refreshing and feel fully supported by them. And I'm hopeful we'll find a solution. My fear is that the bill, the 1095, gets watered down so much it's not effective at all. And that would be a major step backwards.
But the nice thing about this bill is we've had bipartisan support.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, thank you, Linda. Next, Ken's Executive Director's report.
Yes, for the first three items, we have the key indicators, the environmental report, and the safety report. Staff is available if there are any questions or concerns.
Yeah. Question, and just in my ongoing education to try and sort through things, so I thank you for your patience in advance. It's the amount of water that we see running through Sweeney. In the key indicator reports, I see it reported on page 57 as 16.16 million gallons a day on average. And then on page 69, it's reported at 18.77. I don't understand the difference. If this is the water that is associated with Sweeney, there's about a little more than a 2 million gallon per day average difference. Is it just in the reporting, or what am I missing?
I suspect it's in the reporting, but we'll ask Carl if he has any feedback, and Beth on that differential. If not, if we don't have immediate feedback, if we can bring back to you a report at a weekly update to explain that, that is also a path.
Great. Ken, related to that, and what caught my eye to this is we seem to be seeing a slight trend up in the amount of water that we're putting into the system when you consider all three of our sources, and yet a slightly downward amount of running through our wastewater. I assume some of that is a result of irrigation, but is that troubling, or is that anticipated, or please help me understand?
Well, we've talked about that as staff. Carl, would you like to share our thoughts?
I think irrigation would probably be up with the drought that we've, or the.
There are two dynamics going on there. On the wastewater side, I think we have a great trend going with the average flow being very steady and not seeing these big peaks, because we're in a drought, somewhat of a prolonged drought. The groundwater levels are down. We're not getting that high infiltration, and we've done a lot of rehab.
Yeah.
So that's on the wastewater side. On the water side, why the delta between water and wastewater is greater now is obviously irrigation. We tend to do more flushing in the summer months of the system, to maintain water quality. And there's obviously some leakage in the system, but we have a very strong water audit leakage program, and actually our leakage trends are down as well. But I think it's mainly irrigation and flushing.
Thanks, Carl. That's all I had, thank you.
Then for item 4, customer service update, Christie, would you like to come forward and give a quick discussion of that? Thank you.
So just real quick, in the update last week, I talked about the meter situation and the fact that, with the supply chain issues being what they are, the shipment that we ordered in March was delayed and delayed and delayed. They actually did ship last week. They've been in Lumberton though now for a couple days, so if they're still there tomorrow, we're gonna go get them. But we have 355 meters that should be here tomorrow. That's what the tracking information states. We ordered another, 400 that are due to ship at the end of September. So on that order's heels, we put in another order for 500, realizing that, with the ship date being so far out, we needed to get a jump on getting those meters in. We have removed 73 meters for extended accounts that have been in a disconnected status. So those are customers where the house is, not currently inhabited, or, for some other reason, could be because, of a death, or, just because they're not living here currently. We have not gotten any feedback from those customers to indicate yet that they want the meter back. Again, if the account is brought current, we will go back and we will reset that meter at no cost to the customer. So this is not impacting the customer financially from, the fact that we actually went out and took the meter. There are another 20 work orders that are currently in kind of a holding pattern. They will work those as they're in the area. And we are trying to remove those by cycle as we're in those areas working. We have identified another 550 irrigation meters that are kind of in that same status where they're in the ground, but they have not been used for an extended period of time. In some cases, they've never been used. So as part of the meter replacement program, if there was a meter in the ground, it was replaced. So we will be notifying those customers as well that we intend to remove those meters unless they have a need. Or, if they're putting in sod, we're not going to go out and take their meter. But if the customer does not indicate that they need that meter immediately, we will remove the meter until such time as they request for that meter to be replaced. It's been paid for. This will come at no cost to the customer. So I just kind of wanted to give you an update on where we are with the meter supply and the meter issue. But I stand for any questions you may have. Yes, sir.
So removing an irrigation meter.
Yes.
I may not know what's going on. Haven't used my irrigation system in a while. My grass is dying, I go to cut it on and it doesn't work. How does that work?
But then we would go out and replace the meter for you at the
How
time.
quick will that happen?
As soon as we can get out there. If you call and you say that, that you need your meter back, then we will come out and we will replace it.
So wouldn't it be better if we let folks know?
No, we are. We are sending a letter in advance. Yes, sir. Yeah, we're sending that before we go out and actually remove the meter.
I think a letter is not enough if you're going to remove something that I think is in my yard. And I may or may, because I've rarely used my irrigation system.
Mm-hmm.
When I need it. And I don't always read my mail. I don't pay my bill, actually my wife does. And if that gets past me,
Mm-hmm.
I gave her a bill yesterday from May that was in my car and got stuck. So those things get past folks. So again, if someone's expecting to have water and not knowing that something was taken,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how many meters we're talking about, but I think a phone call would probably suffice.
Sure. And we can do that as well. We can absolutely reach out to those customers and see if we can't make contact with the customer.
It does, yeah.
I don't want to have bad customer service experiences with folks, because, you can't get water in your yard, you're going to be a
Yeah.
limit customer. And
Yeah.
that doesn't do well.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
We're setting 200 new meters a month, and we ordered 355. They took a while, and we've got another 400 set to come in September. Are we
Right.
comfortable with the supply that we have?
Based and Development Services actually looked into how quickly those meters will be needed, based on when the building permits were being pulled and, the anticipated rate of completion. And we feel that we should be in a good position to go and to have the meters necessary for the new construction that is occurring.
Thank you. And when we remove unused meters, not the irrigation meters, but just the standard meter, do we repurpose those to go into that supply?
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
But if you
Yes,
were,
they're cleaned and flow tested to make sure that they're okay before we put them in the ground.
if you were uncomfortable with that supply, would that just be a board action to increase an order?
We would take that action. So what Christie and their team's communicating is Secretary Hackney had shared with us that there was some delays at some of our sister utilities. So our team turned around and saw that there were some number of meters that were unused for 2 years. We're repurposing that part of the meter fleet, but we're going to be very cognizant. We're going to listen to the fact that if people need their meter back, either to rent a property or to irrigate, we'll turn that around very quickly. We have 355 meters that we can go get now, and we've made another order, but it's coming in September. So we made a third order to try to come in right behind that. Altogether, with the work that Christie's team's done, we believe that we will be on top of our meter sets. So that's the message that we want to take back. As you help communicate to us a problem elsewhere, we're responding and making sure we don't have it happen here. We want to encourage you and our community at large to let us know if you're seeing problems elsewhere and see if we can get ahead of that here.
That's a question about when multifamily construction is done, are they allowed to sink a irrigation well according to our standards, or do they have to put in an irrigation meter for all their irrigation in their complexes?
We may have to do some staff research and bring back a report on that, because that involves not just our ordinances, but land use ordinances with our sponsor agencies. I don't know if we have any staff who know the answer off the top of their head. If not, we will write up something for the weekly update and bring it back.
Because that's a big ticket. I mean, because they irrigate on a round-the-clock basis, and I'm sure they don't want to pay so much on that irrigation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fingers.
And then our final item, which unfortunately here shows up in two parts of our agenda, is strategic plan. What I'd like to do is simply state that we have it under executive committee. We have a component that we'd like to bring back to you at that time, and just note that we believe we have a product for you to look at. So I have no other items, sir.
Okay. Move on to the committee reports. The executive committee met June 6th. The minutes of that meeting are in the packet. So that'll move on to long-range planning. Mr. Sneeden?
Yes.
I'm sorry, sir. This is where we would
Oh, we're
give
gonna-
our strategic
Okay.
plan
Okay, we
update.
need to move that down. Okay.
Yes. So, Elizabeth, would you like to come forward and give our update on the strategic plan?
Sorry.
That's okay.
Morning. So to give you all an update on the strategic plan, in your packets you have a final draft of the plan. The plan has gone through long-range planning, finance, sustainability, and executive committee, and we've made updates to the plan based on recommendations we've received at all of those committees. Anywhere in the presentation that you see underlying text is where we have made some modifications. And then at the executive committee, we had been given questions of how are we going to take this very complicated conceptual strategic plan and make it a reality. So we've come up with a committee review structure to further implement the plan, and came up with a strategy implementation process. And so we're going to share those with you today. So the proposed mission is to provide quality water and wastewater services to our community. The proposed vision is to achieve excellence in all we do while enhancing our community's quality of life. The values we did keep are stewardship, sustainability, service, but we have added safety as well as defined what these values mean. So as an organization, when we say these words, we know what we mean. We're all speaking the same language. And then we also defined excellence since it comes up in our vision. We want everybody to understand and have that same meaning of excellence. So our intended outcomes, these are the 5 main goals of our strategic plan. These are 5 focus areas that as staff we felt were really important, and we don't really see these changing a whole lot over the course of our strategic plan and maybe even into future plans. We kind of want to set these as our high-level benchmark areas to make sure that we're always doing the things that we want to be achieving. And then from there, we have identified 7 strategic initiatives. These are the goals that we want to work through to help us achieve our intended outcomes as an organization. And as you can see, some of these initiatives hit multiple intended outcomes because, you know, these areas do cross from time to time. So this is the committee review structure. As staff began really looking at our intended outcomes, we noticed that the 5 intended outcomes really go to a very appropriate committee for review. So financial viability would go through finance, infrastructure reliability and product quality to long-range planning, environmental stewardship and protection is to sustainability, customer service and stakeholder understanding, communication, and then employee and leadership development would go through HR. And then to take that further, each of the committees would review one of the 7 intended initiatives. So each of these initiatives will go through an initial committee for review, as well as back through finance once we are ready to spend dollars associated with an implementation process. And then this is the implementation process that we've come up with. So each of the 7 initiatives will need an implementation plan. What are we going to do to achieve those goals? And the first step here is for us to define all of the terms so we understand what they mean, determine what our actual measurable goal is going to be so we can measure success with the initiative. And then that will also receive committee feedback and approval. That way we're all speaking the same language. In step 2, we will then further establish the implementation activities to achieve the goals. So these are the actions, the step 1, step 2, step 3 of this process. And here we will identify roles and responsibilities of staff. What are the resources we need to achieve these goals? Could be time allocation, identify any outside resources that we might need to help close those gaps between staff time, and then identifying the funding needs from the strategic plan and what are we going to be using through that innovation fund. And then that third step is to develop our prioritization process. We see this plan to be a 3 to 5 year plan, so we can't achieve all of these initiatives in year 1. So we've got to identify what is the priorities and how are we going to move through year 1, year 2, year 3. Utilizing that innovation budget for FY23 and then developing future innovation budgets as we move throughout this plan. And then we just kind of gave it a high-level example of what this process would look like for the optimizing water and wastewater systems to produce and deliver high-quality products for our customers and the environment. So one of the first things we would want to do is make sure we all understand, what does high quality mean? Do we want to meet or exceed permit regulations, or do we want to go beyond that? And what does that measure? And then we have to, kind of establish our baseline. What's the gap between what we said we want to do and where we are right now? And then we start building in those steps. So our next steps for today is to hopefully approve the strategic plan, which is the mission, vision, values, intended outcomes, and the initiatives. And then we as staff can get working with the committees to go through that strategy implementation process. Again, routing through the multiple committees, defining the terms, setting the specific goals, and start tracking our progress. Any questions?
So I would bring your attention to 3 pages in your packet. The first is page 85, which are the strategic initiatives, 7 strategic initiatives, conceptual in nature. Then on page 87, a review process for multiple committees, where we'll assign to at least 2 committees a review of those 7 initiatives. And then the actual implementation process itself, page 89. If you approve the strategic plan as recommended, our next steps is to start scheduling meetings with individual committees to look at each of those initiatives and come together and have conversations around action items. Defining terms, suggesting goals, and metrics for each initiative, and that's on page 88. That's that implementation process. An example of how we would do it is on page 89. Once the committee comes to a recommendation on an implementation activity, we as your staff will tell you how many resources we need to dedicate to that. And then if we get a large number of implementation activities, we will need to come back and prioritize it. And much of this will run through the Finance Committee so we can tie funding from the innovation budget. So that's how we turn a conceptual strategic plan into concrete action. And if you approve this plan today, we will start scheduling those meetings with the committees.
Is there any comments or questions, or otherwise take a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Excuse me, who was the second?
Larry.
Thank you.
Looks good.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Next up, long-range planning, Mr. Sneeden.
Yes, we met on May 26th, and the minutes of that meeting are in your package. We've also included a presentation that Carl made at that meeting on the Heritage Park and Marquise Hills projects. Since we're going into some other potentially going into some other projects where we'll be going into neighborhoods and replacing sewer lines, we thought it valuable to go back and review the projects that we've already done and see what we've learned and what went wrong and what we can do to improve it. So Carl made an excellent presentation on that. We did have things go wrong, believe it or not, and we do have some ideas on how to make that better the next time around. So we won't have a presentation today, but encourage everybody to look through that in your package. That concludes our report.
Thank you. Next, Finance Committee, Ms. Adams.
Okay, the Finance Committee met last week, June 1st. Those minutes are in your packet. And Julia's got an update for the monthly financials.
Good morning. I'm going to fill in for John this morning. He's at a conference, but I'm just going to quickly go over a few of the monthly financials with you. This first one is the summary statement of revenues and expenditures, and this is through April 30th, so about 83.3% of the year. Our total unrestricted fund balance is $72.95 million. That is up slightly from March, which was $72.39 million. This is being driven primarily up by the water and wastewater revenues outperforming what we expected, as well as transfers to capital funds slowing down. So we're spending slower in capital than we anticipated. As you know, we budget $18 million to move over. We're only at 10.4 right now. This is primarily due to supply chain issues. They're really starting to affect our projects. And you obviously had the large negative change order in your packet today, and that's just one example of some of this slowdown. But we do fully anticipate spending the $18 million. It's just going to be a little bit slower than normal. To get into the revenues, this is through May 31st, so 91.67% of the year. As you can see, the water and the wastewater revenues are above that at 99.35 and 97.51. So that is obviously over what we anticipated at this point of the year, and we still have one big month left. So we anticipate that to keep going up
and that is being driven by a couple of things. The monthly billing timing affected some of that, and then we're also seeing more demand per customer than what we budgeted for, and then customer growth is also outpacing what we thought we would be this time.
Are you saying we have too much money?
No, we don't. No, it'll be used. The excess, of course, we'll leave the transfers. We're not going to touch those funds, but any excess revenue, or if we come in under our operating budget, those funds can be used either to kind of offset debt in the future. We could pay off debt early, help fund capital. We just haven't exactly decided how we're going to use the excess yet, and that'll be discussed at a later point.
This is, I would consider a good news report. Revenues are coming in better than expected. Through things out of our control, our expenditures are slower than expected on the capital side. We still need that capital, but supply chain is slowing it down. So both of these things will have a downward pressure on the potential rate increase that we would share with you for next year, right? So if we're taking in more money and we're spending less, that means that we would need less than we projected even a month ago in terms of additional revenue. We'll know more as we get closer, as we get prepared in the middle of next year for the budget. Our model suggested 8.5%. Will the model still suggest that with this trend? Probably not.
That means it could get lower.
That's the outcome.
That's good news.
I like that.
I'm gonna go in the opposite direction. This is something that, I've been pretty vocal about, over the years, especially this past year. 70, our fund balance continues to go up. I understand the reasons why, but we're being told regularly that it will come down. And yet, we have yet to see it come down or get anywhere near our targeted goal of $50 million. I'll say it one more time. If we want to raise the $50 million goal to $60 or $70 million, then let's do it. But, to have this constantly going up and then being told that, oh yeah, it's going to come down, Rob, don't worry, not Rob, to the board. And at the same hand, turning around and making a very strong case of why we're raising rates by 8.5% this year, and at the same time saying, and oh yeah, by the way, next year we're going to raise it by 8%. That is a mixed message that we're putting out there. And it feels like we've got a lot of money, we have a lot of projects, and we keep saying, trust us. And at a certain point, that credibility is going to start to slip away. And it's just hard while we're making a lot of cash and asking for more. Again, I understand all the reasons why. They have different buckets. Certainly the GAC is a separate thing. But this is a classic slippery slope that we're on. And I've been very supportive of the rate increases because they've been explained so well. But if I continue to see increasing fund balances like this and, and no pullback on the rate increases, I'll be as equally vocal about, we will need to make some kind of adjustment because I think it's the wrong message.
The point well taken, Commissioner Zappel. You're exactly right.
It could also still, there's a cloud out there in production for housing.
Mm-hmm.
They could slam this. We're busy now, but there are things that are keep being thrown in our way. They could slam on the brakes. And to the very simple thing, if you can't get a water meter, you can't get a customer. And all of a sudden, these numbers go into a nosedive. So, I'm not upset because I have money in the bank when I'm looking at that in the future. Yep. If the road was paved for us to just keep going, then so be it. But still out there scared to death.
Dean said, I hear you. And those, threats have always been out there and will continue to be out there, whether it be inflation or supply chain, et cetera.
Like this.
Yeah. Oh,
nothing like this. Our lead time just in the last 2 weeks just went out 2 more months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
just like that. So just beware.
Oh, the county building you seen sitting out there, just got pushed back by 2+ months, same thing. We can't get storefronts, windows, can't get them.
Yeah.
And these things were all ordered 2 years ago, or in some cases, a year ago. Yeah, I get it, it's very real.
Mr. O'Rourke?
And the other thing, factor we have to look at that's affecting all of us is the inflation rate. I mean, we have a rolling stock that has to be filled with gas, $5 a gallon. I mean, those are very real things that are happening right now. So, I don't disagree with what you're saying at all. And I'm glad that Dean's is here to explain to us, or at least enlighten us as to what's going on in the real world with development. Because I don't always know that, or don't hear it or read about it. So, I always like to have that cushion that I can fall back on. Was, hell, gas might be $10 a gallon by the time next year rolls around. We don't know. Hopefully it won't. But at $5 a gallon, and we bid projects. I know at the city, we've opened up a bid here recently, and I forget how long it had been since we had to rebid it. It doubled.
Yeah.
It doubled. So, I mean, those are very real things that we deal with every day. So, I'm always been a big proponent of a healthy fund balance.
To Rob's point, if we have a policy of 50 million and we're 20% over that consistently and rising, our ratepayers are feeling the same inflation problems that we are, and we need to be sensitive to that and utilize that money in a prudent manner to get it back out to them. So if we're going to change the policy, that needs to be a point of discussion, but to continue to push the policy to the limit that we do, it erodes the trust that we have.
Well, we know we have a plan in place to spend that money down, and perhaps it would be good to have maybe a presentation from John saying, okay, this, and I'm sure he's probably covered it, and I'm just not paid enough attention, but say, okay, this is when we will be spending it down, because obviously we can't spend it down next month.
Yeah.
So we can't come back next month and say, well, we're down to 50 million now.
No.
So if perhaps he can give us a schedule so that we can hold ourselves accountable to that schedule, rather than having some, balance out there that we don't know when it's going to get spent.
Of course. We'll be glad to bring that back along with a report from our capital improvement team about the spending rate. The takeaway is still good information. We're collecting more revenue than anticipated. For reasons out of our control, our spending is down on the capital side. We still need to spend it. So at least in the very short term, in terms of rate making, that means that we'll probably need to ask for less than what we told you even a month ago. And our crystal ball will get clearer over the next couple of months as we see trends in spending and supply chain, and we see trends in water use.
Did I just understand you to say that between now and July 1, we could adjust the rates?
No, sir.
I thought that's what you
But
said.
for next year,
Okay.
we had forecast a 30% rate increase, which this board in its wisdom, I think, was very wise, divided that over 2 years. There was an immediate need for funding for the GAC system. That system's coming online. And we funded that part of it. We project a lot of capital spending. But if that capital spending slips out into the future because of supply chain issues, then of course we're going to come back and recommend less in terms of rate increases, especially if we're collecting more money because customers are more comfortable. But because we had a rate increase, we haven't seen the impact of that rate increase yet on customer usage. The rule of thumb is for every 10% in rate increase, customer usage shrinks by 3%. We need to see the impact on revenue of the last set of rate increases also. So about the middle of next budget year, December, we'll have a better picture of what this means for the following year. These are good trends, though. We hear what you're saying. We need to act accordingly on our existing policies. We needed to modify them or look at ways to address this imbalance.
One comment, just on, but on a macro scale. I mean, so, you know, if you, when we put in the policies 5-6 years ago, the fund balance is significantly down where it was from there. So, I mean, it's like, we're just not spending it as fast as we are. So we haven't grown, to address your concern. Over years, it's come down. It's just not coming down as fast as we anticipated. I think, just to get to your concern. It's not like we're accumulating, but we're not spending it down as fast.
I think that those of you who sit on the Finance Committee, where I know I've had this discussion politely and quietly at the Finance Committee with John for well over a year. And that had been assured, again, that it would go down, and indeed the opposite has been happening. It has continued to go up. And so all I'm saying is this is not something that I'm jumping up and pulling my hair out on there at all. It's a conversation that's been going on for a long time. And I think that we need to address it. I'd love to see the report that we're talking about, and if John can come back with a plan. And again, let me be clear. If we want to raise our limit from $50 million, because you're right, it was set 5 years ago, maybe the appropriate is $65 million. That would put it more in balance. It's just this imbalance that we keep trying to justify, and we still see it continue to go up for all the reasons there. I have no problem in adjusting the policy, but let's have that discussion so that, it gets harder and harder for those people who dig into it in the public who come back and say, you're sitting on top of this mountain of cash and you're raising my rates by 8.5%. And you've already told me we're going to have another rate increase the following year. It gets hard to respond to that.
So with the consensus of the board, we'll bring back some discussion issues at the next Finance Committee, driven by this conversation.
Thank you. I have one more tiny detail. I apologize, but it's something that's come up just recently here at the county, and I want us to be aware of it. It has to do with our inspections department, or those employees who use their own vehicles and are reimbursed at the 58 cents, general federal rate per mile. They're getting hammered. What Charlie was just saying, paying $100 for a tank of gas. And if we need to take a hard look at that and make some adjustments, because that 58 cents not only covers the gas, but it covers the maintenance of their own vehicles. It sounds like a small problem, but it's actually a pretty big problem for those employees. So if it's not on our radar, we should put it on our radar.
We'll inquire about that after the meeting and come back with some information on that.
Thank you.
Okay, then we have two items that need to come before the board. We didn't have a quorum for these in finance. The first one is a resolution for state revolving loan offers for rehab and replacement of gravity sewer in the downtown Wilmington area and pump station 14 force main replacement. Carl.
Yeah, I think this is a good story. This is to accept a little over 16 million for two projects for low interest loans. The first one is for the Greenfield Lake Force Main Replacement Project. It's accepting an $11.6 million low-interest loan. We were approved for that about a year or so ago for $7.6 million. We bid the project. The prices came in 30% or so higher because of material cost. So we went back to the state and asked if we could increase the loan to cover the entire project for $11.6 million. The state agreed. And the resolution is to accept that $11.6 million loan at a very attractive interest rate of 1.06% for 20 years. We did have a quorum for that item at the Finance Committee meeting, so the board does not have to approve that today. The second one, we did not have a quorum, which is a $4.6 million loan acceptance resolution for gravity sewer replacement in downtown Wilmington, primarily from Market, on Fifth Avenue from Market to Greenfield Street.
Actually, we discovered that it was not on the consent agenda, it was left out, so we do need to approve both of those separately today. Sorry
There's
about
also
that.
an ordinance for Greenfield, that's why it's all in finance.
and the ordinance is the next item. So 2 resolutions to accept 2 low-interest loans for a total of $16 million.
Any questions, comments?
Yeah, on each one of them separately, the 2 resolutions.
Motion to accept the resolution for the gravity sewer in the downtown Wilmington area?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion for the pump station 14 Greenfield force main replacement?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so then the next item is a budget ordinance for the Greenfield Lake, for that exact same project.
Yeah, it's just the difference for what we'd already appropriated when we first got the loan, and then this just makes up the difference for the total amount.
I'll make the motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's it for finance, thank you.
All right. Next up, sustainability, Dr. Cannon.
Yes, we met on the 26th. The minutes are included in your packet. We had an excellent presentation from Kat Pullman about our source water protection plan, which obviously for our organization is a pretty important project. We completed a number of years ago under EPA regulations, a risk and resiliency, and we're sort of taking it up to the next level. And they were coordinating with regional partners and with 12 different members of our staff within the organization to kind of kick it up to a North Carolina level plan. And if we submit to DEQ that we've done our due diligence and identified potential sources of contamination, it can put us in a better standing for certain grants and other low-interest loans. So it's a project that'll be completed by this summer, but it's an ongoing plan to coordinate with our regional partners that'll take place over the next few years. So it's an interesting presentation. It's in your packet if you'd like to look at it.
Thank you. With that, that's the end of our agenda today. Any old business or closing comments?
Mr. Chair, did we miss having a vote on the new strategic plan? Did you need a vote on that?
We did.
We voted on it.
Bill and Larry.
Zoom, okay, sorry. Got off there. Thank you.
We had a moment of silence.
Yeah, all right, yes, thank you.
I'm gonna write that down that you missed that.
Sorry.
You didn't miss much.
Along with my sidewalks around Mason.
Well, that's who they're coming.
Oh, they will. They're a little farther out than,
Any closing comments? If not, take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thanks, everybody.